ready and up and together and getting the vibes right, as you can see. And so just making sure that it is a enjoyable watching experience for you, but we want to get down to business per usual. So I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody in, let everybody flow in. Let me know down below in the chat if you also saw our email newsletter. We've been getting that together. I know that I've always said, join the leverage newsletter, It'll be coming out, things coming to you, all that kind of stuff. And we're getting back into our email marketing, getting back into my my entrepreneurial business bag of just making sure people are informed. So yeah, I used to send out a newsletter every other day, to be honest with you. And yeah, whether it be inspirational via our podcast or whether it be some type of life advice, a story from my week or my day that may inspire you, a word. So yeah, we're going to keep it segmented for the leverage newsletter, just making sure it's trading and financial focused. And if you'd like to join a different newsletter that we haven't coming out, just my personal, then we'll go from there. All right. Beautiful. You got it. Awesome. I appreciate you. Wonderful. All right. It is 3:45 my time. It is 5:45 on Central Standard Time and 6:45. They're coming back, Megan. Trust me. I got a lot of stories, a lot of life lessons, and I'm going to share some today, as the market always teaches us, about ourselves. So, I always tie it in. So I appreciate you, Megan, for being here and for tapping in and always being a part of what we got going on. And I need to call you and Josh, just to see how y'all are doing and catch up and what's up. I'm just checking in. All right. So I think we're good. All right, folks, let's jump into it. Thank y'all so much for being here. This is our Stock Sermon Sunday. This is our weekly market analysis that we do for the overall stock market, the economy, and what's going on in the world right now. And there's a lot. So if you love being here, if you can give me a 1 down in the chat, if you're able to type. If not, that's perfectly fine. If you got your notebook out, if you've got your specific charts up and you got me on the side TV, you got me blown up in an 85-inch, 65-inch, whatever you got. Hopefully my head doesn't look too big. That's why I try to have these vibes right. So that boy coming in with a leather jacket, and hey, what I'm saying? It's a lot of things changing around here, folks. It's not even changing. I do have some notes here that, I try not to. I'm not even going to say that. I am who I am, and I believe what I believe. And I think there's a higher power for everybody, whether that's God for you or spirituality. And I'm not here to preach to you, but I am here to say, if I have space and God-given talent to have someone's attention, it is my duty to share an experience, a word, something that isn't going to inspire you in some type of way. So as I always do, I always share what's on my heart. And I think it can help anyone and everyone within the markets as well, because it's not just an exterior skill set game. It's an internal battle, right? And there was a word today that was talking about battles, and people are battling life things. People are battling financial things. People are battling health things. People are battling all types of relational things, friendships, and that is affecting how you show up to the markets. If you're really trying to learn a skill set, a lot of folks just show up to a job. That's easy, right? Because you can perform. You're going to get paid regardless, right? You get a check every 2 weeks. You get a check every week. You get a check every month. You get your salary, whatever it is, right? If you got a business that's on autopilot, right, and you got your own thing going on, right, and you got some recurring revenue. Maybe you got some assets and investments, right? So in my opinion, it's not just about showing up here and saying, here's what's going to perform for the week. It is, but it's also saying, how much conviction do I have? How much belief do I have in the research that I've done that allows me to make executive decisions? Because as we say in the community, scared money don't make no money, but we also have to have risk management. And when you have risk management, that does not mean going into the game scared, right? So I'm going to start off there for everybody. And I got a couple of things really quick, some housekeeping things. And yes, my branding, all that good stuff that I focused on for almost a decade now is going to be coming back, as y'all see. So folks, I've been getting a little bit lazy on that. So, hey, it is what it is. Brian, show up how you want to show up, man. So really quick, the title, Win Before You Begin. That was the word that was given to me today. Win before you begin. I've been coaching and teaching and mentoring for almost a decade now, post pharmacy school. That's where the doctorate is. So if you ever thought the doctorate wasn't real, yes, I went through professional school, went through all that stuff that the world tells you to do. So when people ask me and they say, hey, I want to develop a business, or hey, I want to do this, or what is your perspective on this? And how did you get through that? And everyone's got a story. Everyone's got hardships that they've been through. And in this particular case, we're talking about the stock market. So if you're here and like, man, I want to learn how to trade. How do you make all that money? I've seen people make this amount, that amount, and this amount. And the first battle you come into and say, man, I lost $100. Well, how did you get that $100 to even potentially lose? There's someone that doesn't even have $100 to lose. Now, I'm not saying losing money, but I'm saying if you are complaining about the smallest miracles, what are you going to do when an actual attack comes? If you're complaining or worrying about the smallest miracles that were a blessing upon your life, then what's going to happen when an actual attack comes? What's going to happen when actual real stuff hits? What's going to happen when you want to make that $100,000 and you lose 10 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand? Because with that high amount also comes potential risk, depending on what you're doing. You can invest $100 to $300 per day and have 3 million in the next 20, 30, 40 years. That's the responsible way. And some people want to trade and make that first 4-figure trade, that first potential 3-figure trade, that first potential 5-figure trade. So just keep that in the back of your mind for today's lesson, because it's imperative as we have. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I didn't even know that was available. So, hey, you are the first one that's ever done that. So I appreciate you. You comment on every video, you support, and then now you're giving up of your hard-earned $10. So I appreciate that in some type of way. Yeah, it's a blessing. Couple more. If fear doesn't take a day off, neither should your faith. If you're afraid of losing money, or you're scared that if I do this thing and it doesn't work, I should have done something else, then how strong is your faith life? How much do you believe that you can make it happen and get it done and go back in the next day, right? So if that's not there, maybe it's not the skill. Maybe it's not the stock market. Maybe it's not even the person, i.e. myself, that's delivering the information that's wrong. Maybe it's like, I'm going to make this happen regardless. And that's what separates those, in my opinion, that treat this thing as a marathon instead of a sprint. So if that resonates with you in some type of way, just put a 5 down in the chat if you could. I know some people are not even ready for those deep things sometimes, but if you know me, I just can't do surface level things. I just can't, because I've noticed, and I apologize, it's coming back here. I've noticed that is a pillar for people actually continuing in the game. All right. We good? All right, folks, let's jump into it today. If you've never been here before, number one, we go over the fundamental analysis, i.e. the market sentiment, okay? How we feel about the markets. There's a lot of questions. You can put your questions down below in the chat. That allows me to go over any stock that you may have. What's the prediction of those things? And this week is everyone's focus saying, Brian, just get over with it. What's going on with NVDA? What's going to happen this week? We also have Trump tariffs, okay? Trump tariffs were dismissed, right, or shut down by the Supreme Court, 6-3 ruling. And they were talking about this, saying everyone's excited, yelling, screaming, so on and so forth. But guess what? Somehow, some way, he's able to impart some type of global tariff, 10%, 15%. Okay? So I want you to take note of this. Write this down. Most data reactions do not hit until minimum 2 days to 3 days post the news. They don't settle in until that minimum. So while you yell and you scream and you say, see, that's what I see on social. That's what I see when people are uninformed. I'm like, it's not over yet. Okay? It's not over yet. The market's going to do what it wants to do. This is just a blip, right? And it overshadows the economic data. And if you've been here with me for a while, you know we don't get mixed up in the noise and whatever they're overshadowing. We look at data dependent. I want to think like a hedge fund. I want to think like the Federal Reserve. What would the Federal Reserve do if they see tariff news? They're like, okay, great, whatever, get out of the way. That's not really that's important. But what's the jobs looking like? What does GDP look like? Which was not necessarily that good this past week, right? What do those data reports do? Because what do most people want? Rate cuts. And if the rate cuts still don't come, then we're right back to where we were. Is everyone cool with that? So that's the sentiment that when people are asking me in the past, what do you think is going to happen with these Trump tariffs? Well, I don't know yet. It typically happens 2 to 3 days, maybe a week after, until we kind of see what settles in, right? Because they can make a news event, Supreme Court, and then we keep about our business. All right. So that's why we trust the charts and follow along there. So I appreciate whoever was that. Come on, Brian. You learn English, man. I can't see the name, so I appreciate whoever also shared a little super cash or whatever that is there. So I appreciate it. All right, cool. Let's jump into it. And it's a little laggy here, so I apologize for that if it's lagging a little bit. I'm not sure why, but we're going to jump right into the share screen and get right into it. All right. All right, economic data here. Economic data for the week. All right, we got Fed Waller speaking along with factory orders. Remember, any type of 10 a.m. data that should move the market a little bit on Monday. Okay. We've got Tuesday, a lot of Fed speakers. Typically, Bostic is a little bit more bullish in nature. So we shall see what Waller and Bostic are talking about, because the market could have some continuation from last week. So we could get some continued upside. So if you're looking for a sentiment, I think right now the bulls have control yet again with that spark from Friday. So if you're thinking calls or puts, Brian, on Monday, I would lean more towards the upside for right now. And then as we settle into the week, we don't know how NVIDIA is going to react to their earnings. So remember the last NVIDIA earnings, and I'll show those who don't remember that we don't expect NVIDIA to miss on earnings. No one's going to expect that. That's why everyone's so hyped up on one side. But if you remember the last NVIDIA earnings, it shot up to almost $200+ and then sold all the way off back to 170. Okay. Am I saying that's going to happen this time? No. But in my opinion, I think it will be a great opportunity, kind of like Amazon, right? When Amazon had its earnings, what did it do for many of you that want to pick up these blue chip companies at a discount? You want them to have good earnings and then potentially sell off after the earnings to give you a better opportunity to buy up more shares for the future. Because you can be positioned right now, but if they shoot up and just take off with earnings, it kind of gives you a little bit of chasing mentality and said, dang, I knew I should have bought some or positioned myself. So in my opinion, before earnings or big blue chip company earnings, position yourself. If you're a long-term investor, if you're a trader, okay, I would be very mindful of trading before earnings unless you put an extreme amount of time on it. But in my opinion, I would stay away from trading before earnings because the post-earnings trade is so much more lucrative, in my opinion, in these days. Because before, Amazon earnings is going to beat, it's going to go through the moon. Okay? NVIDIA's earnings is going to beat, it's going to go through the roof. Palantir earnings is going to beat, it's going to go through the roof. And it has not been performing that way as of the last couple of earnings reports. So just be very mindful of putting those call options in before earnings, but do you, okay? All right. Wholesale inventories, consumer confidence, that's going to be very important there on Tuesday. I think that's going to be a lot of volatility. on Tuesday. So for my Leverage University members in our trade room, if you're not yet there, that is perfectly fine. We look forward to seeing you pretty soon. But consumer confidence, we should be getting some good volatility there on Tuesday before the NVDA earnings that comes in on Wednesday. All right. Initial jobless claims here. So in my opinion, I think normally if you need a little roadmap, if you're new here, I think the best trading opportunities typically happen, or where I make most of my money, is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Monday typically is more of a reading day for me. Now, we'll take some trades in our trade room, and you may take some trades. Why do you take off Monday? Because it's very difficult to get a read on the market, because you're coming off of a weekend. You're assuming what's going to happen last week is going to happen, and you're trying to figure it out without a lot of information just yet. So if we can kind of take it easy on Monday, take a solid trade if we want to, take completely off, and then just get Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then yield some profits, protect our profits, and then producer price index is supposed to come in on Friday. That is our PPI report. Okay. If you're not familiar with those reports, I have a video on the channel. Go look at those on the economic data reports. All right. Earnings calendar. Only one. We don't even need to pull up the calendar here because there's only one. And there's some others. Just kidding there, but there's some others that you may be interested in. But NVIDIA is going to be the big mover of the week. Okay. Now, there's some others that are very, very important here that some of you may be keeping your eye on. And let me check this just to make sure, because it has been lagging a little bit. I think we're still good. Okay, cool. All right. NVIDIA, Salesforce, Snowflake, Ionic in the quantum computing space. Okay. All those are after the close on Wednesday. Home Depot. Okay. DIA has been moving a lot of those safety stocks, a lot of those people have been calling the boomer stocks or the US 30 stocks. There's the kind of safety retailers, things of that nature have been moving. The Home Depots, the McDonald's, the Lowe's, right? And even Apple has been moving into safety a little bit. Home Depot should be interesting there. I know people used to ask about, and maybe still do, NVTS. In the semiconductors, maybe to keep an eye on that. QBTS, right? The big mover of quantum this last 2025. And I even forgot HIMS. Oh my goodness. I don't know how I forgot that. People probably have questions about, what do you think about HIMS? I think HIMS, being from the healthcare background, I think HIMS is still a reputable company. I think it's still speculative right now because it's playing against the big players in the GLP-1 space or the weight loss space. So I definitely keep an eye on it. I think it's a good risk to reward buy. What that means is I think at $13 to $15 a share, I think it's a great risk to reward. Even if you can double up your money within the next year and it goes back to $30, if you get lucky and it, comes back to fruition, not lucky, but if it comes back to fruition and it gets back up to $70, $100 a stock, whatever your prediction is. But I look at it as, if I can invest with shares and get a double up, right? Just double the money. If you buy at $14, $15, not financial advice, but $14, $15, and you double it up, maybe trim some profits, right? And then see how they move forward from there. But HIMS, I think, is a great buy there, personally, at that level. Circle, a lot of questions there. I think still a lot of these speculative stocks still on the brink because the rate cuts. Right. A lot of these speculative stocks, for those that don't know, when you're asking, and I don't consider myself a guru or whatever that, they say on these channels, but just an information specialist. OK. And a thought leader. So Circle, a lot of people will ask, what do you think about Circle? What do you think about QBTS? Well, they're still speculative, meaning they still have to prove themselves with their earnings reports and their revenue and their free cash flow and the moat that they're going into. So it's kind of like, okay, you're investing in it before it takes off. So you might have a higher risk, but with higher risk becomes higher reward. Those that invested into Bitcoin at $100 or underneath $1,000 that no one was talking about it, they reap the reward. So when you ask those questions, right, we do our research and I say, well, the numbers look good. Put your money where your mouth is. I can't tell you what to buy. I may have a little bit in it, but I'm not putting my whole amount of money into these particular stocks personally. And you see why, because if you've been watching those charts, a lot of those companies pull back 80%, right? 70%. If you didn't take any profits and you bought at the lows, you're right back to where you were. So if you're asking about any of those types of companies, just be mindful that those are still speculative companies. They need rate cuts. It might take a little bit longer for the runway. So just set it and forget it. Put the amount of money that you would like into those particular stocks and then keep watching their earnings reports to keep up with them. Personally, I love Ionic. We were talking about Ionic at $7. So we purchased Ionic at $7 and it's right back to around 30. I like the quantum computing space personally, and I think Ionic is a big player there, partnering with Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, okay, and many others. So there's your earnings report, okay? Dell should be interesting as well. Mara, CoreWeave on there, SoundHound, Duolingo, also very interesting. It's on a big dip, so I'm interested to see if they perform. I know people are looking at Rocket Lab. You're like, you missed Rocket. There's a lot on here. There's literally every name that people have asked for probably in the past year, okay? So there we go. All right, I'll check the chat really quick. If anyone has any questions, thoughts, perspectives, if you'd like to ask there. Everyone's quiet right now. Okay, cool. Let's keep rolling. All right, let's go into our analysis of SPY, QQQ, IWM. If anyone has any thoughts, questions, perspectives, you'd like me to cover anything, you're more than welcome to put it down in the chat, all right? So now we're gonna go into our indice analysis, which is our SPY, QQQ, and see where they are, and then our respective core stocks that we trade or invest into long-term, which are our top tech stocks, and then the semiconductor sector, and then looking at some side watches as well. We'll look at crypto as well. All right. So I think I'm beating a broken record here, or I sound like a broken record, because if I look on a weekly chart, SPY is still in a channel. Okay. It's still in a channel. So when we come here and it's like, man, I really want to say something different, but there's really nothing else to say. I think y'all have heard me. You see it. If you've been investing, it's like, it's just in a channel. Okay. If you look back here into SPY on in October of last year, it was at 687 and some change. Okay. Right there, October, end of October, it topped out at roughly 687. Okay. And where are we right now? Relatively 5 months afterwards, 4 months to be more specific, 689. So it seems like we've been going to new all-time highs, but we're pretty much right in the same space, and we haven't really chose a direction as far as expansion, okay? So if I look at this chart right here and I want to work from right to left, the first thing I want to look at is how this last weekly candle finished off. If we look at that weekly candle right there, that weekly candle is signaling strength, right? Can't deny it. It's signaling strength, okay? There's a solid body bar to the top. There's a decent wick on the bottom. No top wick, which signals more of selling coming in or profit taking. So I would consider that bullish, okay, for the short term. But as we know, what happened last time we got that type of bar, which was right here, we popped up with continuation and then we sold right back off, okay? So just keep that in mind for SPY right here. So the level on SPY, as we jump into the daily chart, is now I want to look at the moving averages here, okay? And the moving average stack, listen to that video when you get a chance if you have not done so on the channel. Our moving averages gives us kind of a sentiment as well, okay? One of the moving averages, or main one that I look at for the sentiment, is the daily 50 moving average, which is this lime green line right here in the middle, okay? That gives me a sentiment of bullishness or weakness or bearishness, whichever way. Okay, if it's above this lime green line for me, that's typically a little bit more bullish, okay, or strength in the short term, okay? But if you look on the bigger term, for my folks that are savvy with the charts and can see it already ahead, it's like, Brian, isn't that a lower high? Yeah, it technically is. Some people may look at this and say, well, is that a bull flag right there? Well, it potentially could be. We don't know, right? It hasn't broken out of this channel like this, and it hasn't broken down underneath that channel like that, okay? So we're essentially just, the term is called consolidating or trading in a range, trading in a channel, and each day people get excited saying, well, which way do you think it's, I don't know yet. We're in a reactive skill set, okay, specifically for trading. So we can have a sentiment for the week, but that's why it's very difficult to say, hey, on this stock sermon Sunday, which is why I don't really do it. If y'all are asking specifics, I'm trying to teach and empower people to read the market and then react to it versus saying, hey, Dr. B said if it breaks above 690, enter calls. No, I didn't. Because 691 is also resistance. So you can enter calls and it hits 691 and rejects off of it. So it's a little bit different than just saying, if this above this level, go, right? But I will say if it's above this 687, then consider it a little bit more bullish in nature or upside if you needed that kind of sentiment, okay? If it gets back below 687, more specifically 686, then we consider, okay, there's a little bit more weakness back in the market, okay? So we call it or I call it personally, my pivot point, or some people may say bull bear pivot, okay? Above, consider more bullish, below, a little bit more bearish, okay? Now let's jump into our hourly chart here. And our hourly chart kind of gives us that sentiment for potentially what might happen. And I don't think we're going to really break out or break down until really NVIDIA reports, okay? So if I look at the hourly here, I've got an interesting look, okay? You can see the up, down, up, down, up, down, okay? And it's trying to decide. So if NVIDIA has positive earnings, we'll probably break SPY back up into highs into 697 and then trying to go into new highs if it kills the earnings and then also the data is good and then also the Trump tariffs have good response and then we go higher and then that becomes a bull flag, okay? So I would watch for it trying to get back up to minimum that 694 level. Why? For my futures traders, my futures folks that watch the futures market, 694 is what? ES 7000. We should know that level very well by now because we've seen it multiple times. ES futures 7000. Okay, that's 694 on SPY. Okay. So there you go. If we don't perform, then you see what's down below. Brian, is that a gap down there that you talk about? Yes, it is. So if we cannot get going and NVIDIA says, whoop, and then whoop, like that, then we're probably filling some of those gaps. And then we're headed down into what we've been talking about for months, which is that corrective period. And we go into a correction. Okay. Alrighty. I want to show you, like I promised here, what you were talking about, Brian, when you said last NVIDIA earnings. I want you to look at this candle right here on SPY. Okay. That was the last NVIDIA earnings. When you woke up in the morning, everyone was yelling and screaming that NVIDIA was, and I was telling our community, I'm like, I'm shorting NVIDIA. It's like, you're crazy, man. They just blew out earnings and you're shorting it? Yes, because of my gap fill rules. Okay. And that was one of the most monstrous trading days I have ever seen. Let me give you an example for those who don't know. An options contract on SPX, which is the S&P 500, the big boy. One options contract went from $10 to $10,000. One option put went from $10 to $10,000 in a matter of an hour. Okay. So dang, like I wish that could happen again. Maybe, I don't know. Okay. But this was the last NVIDIA earnings. It popped SPY up. Well, Brian, isn't that a red candle? Yes. But when we woke up in the morning, SPY was up here at 673. And what did it do? We woke up in the morning, it sold all the way back off to 650. It gave up $14 on the SPY in one day, roughly almost 1 hour. Okay. Almost 5%. Okay. So if you need a visual, if you're a visual person, which I do like to show a lot of folks because people are visual, I like to connect what I'm saying to visuals. There's your visual right there of what I'm talking about, that we don't know what's going to happen to the market until NVIDIA really reports. So we could take off or we could go down and then there's going to be a lot of volatility either way. And again, NVIDIA reports on Wednesday after the close. So that means Thursday is going to be our prime trading opportunity. So if you're on the brink and would like to trade with us live, make sure you're in Leverage University by Wednesday. Okay. Alrighty. Let's go into QQQ. Roughly the same, but I like the Qs look a little bit better because it is not reverting back to the highs and is still underneath 613. Okay. 613 is going to be your pivot point. If it gets back above and shoots above, in my opinion, this looks more support and bullish for right now. It could look like this. Okay. NVDA has good earnings. Watch out for this red area here. If you see that 612, 613 area. What does that mean, Brian? Because I got to address the new people on here. That means if we go into the Qs, into this 612, 613, you can trade calls up into it if you want to. If you can catch that little small move in the morning, if it's right around 610, you got about a couple more dollars and catch it. Okay. But you have to respect this area. What does that mean? That means what happened in this area last time. Sellers stepped in, bam, down. Sellers stepped in, bam, down. So do I want to hold calls into this area until I know that it clears? If you're trading options, if you're in the futures market, again, if you'd like to use, which I personally do, using the indices, SPY, QQQ to also help you trade futures, then I would watch for this area here to make sure it clears above that area. Okay. Because look what happened last time. People thought that it was going up right here. Bam. Nope. Revert down. Can it get back above again? I don't know. Shoot up, or does it come back down? All right. Let me check the chat. Make sure everyone's good here. Man, no questions. Am I freezing a little bit? Okay. There we go. I feel like I was lagging or freezing a little bit. Maybe I am. Alrighty. Let's keep it rolling. I think we're making good time here. So there's your area. 613. We'll react to that accordingly. Maybe 610 could step in because 610 is the post NVIDIA earnings last time and also the tariff news from last time, which is right here. There were the October tariffs, bam, and then there was the post NVIDIA earnings, bam, that was right at 610. Okay. So I want to keep both of those areas on watch, 610 and then 613, 613, 612, 613. Okay. Some people may be looking at it a little bit higher, which I would maybe recommend, which is 615 instead. Okay. So going to be a tough area here to trade in my opinion, because it's still within this channel until we get a clear direction of where it's going. But again, considering more bullish, if I turn on my moving averages here, on the SPY, and then if you see, where is that right up into on QQQ, the daily moving average stack. So if we push right up into there, you can trade calls up into it, but then watch what it does here. Does it clear or do we reject off of that area? Okay. Awesome. IWM, very interesting here. IWM had some serious volatility on Friday, but again, it closed kind of odd, in my opinion. Okay, closed kind of odd with this top wick here, right off that 267, 266. Didn't really close with a solid bar candle. All right, so a little bit tricky there, in my opinion. But again, I am not losing sight of this large gap fill on IWM as a potential. Okay, right there, back down to 255. So as much as I want that, I got to be patient on it. I've just been patient and patient and patient because I think that could be a monster move. This could be a monster move as well, but there's a lot of overhead, as we call it, supply or resistance. There's a lot of people up here in this area. You see all those bam, pop, bam. Everyone's stacked up here trying to take it to the highs. And if that fails, everyone's stop losses are going to get hit. And then that's when you get flushes like that. Okay, so that's more so the trade that I would like out of IWM, but I cannot take that until it clears. And I have to respect that it's still rolling with higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, and then wants to go potentially higher. So if you're looking for IWM to go higher, got to get above that 268 and clear above that to start pressing back up into these highs. And then some of you may be looking at this as a curling action, bull flag, and then breakout like that. Okay, it could go either way. Okay. So I'll be watching IWM. I have my alerts on underneath 261 on IWM. That's where I think personally that will give out underneath this 261. Above that 263, it's going to still be bullish. So trade that how you please. DIA, don't trade personally. I know my boy James trades DIA a little bit more, but I do pay attention to it based off of a lot of stocks that are in the DIA, such as McDonald's, Home Depot, Amazon, so on and so forth. So DIA looks pretty bullish here. All right, back above this 496, gets back above that 497 and starts reverting up. We could get a push on our Amazon. Just go look at DIA or the Dow Jones Holdings, or if you're in the Forex market or futures, just go look at the top US 30 stocks, US 30. Okay. Alrighty. I'm gonna just jump straight to NVIDIA. Okay. And I can't really give too much on NVIDIA because it's all based off of earnings, but I will say that if NVIDIA breaks out of this level and we see it gap up on Friday, if you want to enter calls before, do what you do. Contracts will be a little bit pricey. So if you're not too comfortable trading with earnings and you don't pay attention to that type of stuff, the IV or the implied volatility will be high on options contracts with NVIDIA. So if you look up on Monday, it's like, man, I want to trade NVIDIA up. And you're like, why are these contracts so pricey? Because they have earnings. So it's elevated. It's leading up to a big event. They're elevating the contract prices. So just be careful with that on NVIDIA. So it also might chop around a lot. So personally, I'd stay away from anything that has earnings that week. But if it has a good setup, I'll take it now that we have those Monday, Wednesday, Friday contracts on NVIDIA. Side note, I probably will be starting kind of, I wouldn't say promoting, but I've been getting a lot of questions around futures. Okay. And I do have some futures accounts open right now. I haven't really been saying, hey, here's futures, because I want to focus on one or two things. And a lot of people have been asking about that. So I may trade some futures a little bit more aggressively or seriously this week and into March because I think there's going to be some good setups. So look out for that. If you want to be involved in that, just let me know. But yeah, you can trade futures 23 hours of the day. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I've been waiting on IWM as well. Yep, just waiting on it. All right. So NVIDIA breakout above this 196, in my opinion. That would be the previous earnings high, which was right here. It tapped up into roughly 196, almost $200, and that's where it sold off right there. So if it does the same thing, it pops all the way back up here into 200, and we get that little gap fill. I think personally there's going to be a large gap. That would be an ideal trade personally. If NVIDIA, takes off on earnings like that, and shares are up, everyone's happy, I might be looking for that gap fill all the way back down like this. Okay. Just personally. So that's the trade idea I will personally be looking for. If it just stays flat or if it grinds up higher, we'll see what it does. But it looks like it wants to break out. And if it doesn't, if it has poor earnings, it will look something like this and gap down underneath that 175. And then we're headed back down to my big buy area, which is roughly around 155, 160. Okay. That's where I would start potentially looking at a little bit more of leap options. Bigger buys would be closer to that 150, 160. Okay. All right. Let's jump into Apple. Okay. I'll go back up to our big tech. Apple really just going to be dependent on what the overall market does. I like how Apple's been moving in this area. I like how Apple's been fluid a little bit more. I like charts like this. I want fluidity. I want up, down, rotation, back down, back up. That volatility you can make good money on via trading. Okay. And I will talk about long-term if anyone has any questions on where would you buy Apple, or is this a good buy area? It's always a good buy area, but I've always said personally that I wait until a correction comes. I wait till SPY, QQQ get into extreme fear. That's where I personally start saying, hey, now's the time. Hey, now's the time. Load up a little bit heavier, load up a little bit heavier. Okay. Right up here, I would DCA personally. And then if it drops, then you got a little bit more wiggle room. Okay. Apple break above this moving average stack here above 267, probably can get a movement into 270, and then maybe it reverts back up to the highs. If it rejects off that 266, that is a underbelly right there of previous supports. Rejects, this could be a bear flag, and it could roll back down to the lows, and we get underneath it. Okay. If not, it's going to look up here, there. Okay. Google, relative strength. Okay. This was one of the top trades I was looking for on Friday and just didn't trust it because SPY and QQQ were just chopping around a little bit too much and we had too much volatility. It was just, and then I just missed my Google entry. I saw Google kind of up pre-market. It was rolling up pre-market right here. It was up at like 306, 307, right? And I was looking for that breakout of 306. Fridays are pretty fast. So by the time it broke out and going, you know, maybe it was a little bit more risky than I wanted to take on a Friday. So I just missed this trade ultimately. That was a beautiful trade for Google on Friday. Now, what do we see? That now that there's a little bit of relative strength on Google off of this moving average here, it's got a target up to that potential 325 for continuation. Okay. So if Google does continue a little bit of strength and breaks out of a new high, and then you get that continuation, you can look for Google one more push up into 320 and then potentially 325, and you get that continuation like that. Okay, this little gap fill up. So that would be a ideal kind of continuation call trade. If it does pull back, I think that would be a little bit more ideal instead of chasing a breakout like this. So if it pulls back into that 310 or so, maybe get a little bit of a pullback on a Monday, maybe. But remember what I tell you, if you've seen me before, you know, I don't like to chase. So if it expands quickly like that, I really am careful about taking a continuation because the entry was back down here. Okay. And that's when you get those chasers and then it just, bam, right back down. Okay. So I'll watch Google for continuation and it will just be a break of previous day high. So which roughly be around 316 and some change. Okay, so watch that relative strength. Amazon, same thing, relative strength here on Amazon. Okay, this kind of associates with the DIA and also the consumer discretionary or XLP. Okay, tariffs are good for consumer discretionary, right? Amazon can roll a little bit better. Retail's going back. They're like, oh, no tariffs. Cool. So think about it like that, that consumer discretionary could be nice. So Amazon is a part of that. And we could get some continuation on Amazon. So what I would look for is just a break of previous day high, which would be above that 212 level for continuation for calls up until about 216 and then maybe 220 like that. Why do I say 216s? Because you got that right there, which is that previous low that you got to just be a little bit cautious of, right? Those previous lows that could act as a little resistance. Okay. I know it's right in the middle of a gap, but you got to respect that. Okay. So Amazon 220 is the big target. And then ultimately if NVIDIA takes off, then Amazon could roll all the way back up here and fill all those gaps like that. Okay. So Amazon's got a nice relative strength off of it. Not really coming off of a moving average or anything like that. So that's my only thing. Maybe a weekly. Yeah. Reclaim the weekly 100 moving average, which was right at 207. So use that 207 as a support for Amazon. 207 as a support. Chat, how long have you guys been trading? Beautiful. Yeah, everyone there. Yeah, I've been waiting on IWM. Awesome. Sherry, just listening. Sherry, okay. Sherry must have said something. Yeah, 6 months, 2 with Dr. B, just started MES Futures. Yeah, so Sherry's a good, yeah, if y'all have any questions about anybody, like ask them in the chat. If anyone's in Leverage University and y'all want to just engage in the chat, please just do it while you're listening to me. I always open up anyone that's inside of Leverage University. I do attract a lot of individuals that have been trading for a little bit and then just trying to hone it. There are some beginners as well. So if you're a complete beginner and know absolutely nothing about it, we do have long-term investing as well. We have a channel for that. Shares, leaps, things are a little bit longer out if you're too busy for the short-term stuff. And then futures as well. So people are learning things pretty quickly. So if that is you, if you're like, hey, how long does it take to really learn this? Are you in the community? All that kind of stuff. Like, these are people that are successful or becoming successful in their trading after a couple of months, maybe a couple of weeks for some, right? And they're getting it, and we're just having fun, right? And also another question, do y'all lose? Do you take losing? Yes, of course. Like, it's a part of it. But the winning ratio is larger than the losing. And that's the whole big thing. Risk management first, okay? So if I had to take a paper cut, 20%, I'm out. And just say my position size is $1,000 and I lose $200, but then make 400 the next day, make 500 the next day, make 800 here, make 200 here, like, then you're green for the week. Okay. So, but I will be transparent that February has been pretty tough. It's been pretty flat for me. So if you've been seeing that with other traders or whatnot, or you watch anyone else, it's been a tough trading month, right? So if you are learning or wanting to learn how to trade, I think that this is a great time to learn, because once the market breaks out of this range, it's going to get a lot better. March should be good. April should be good. And then May should be good. So I think personally the second quarter should be really, really nice. But it's been pretty flat for me this month. Just up, down, a little bit green here, there, just kind of flat, just a little bit of frustrated in the range and no continuation on the trades. Kind of have to take quick scalps and things of that nature, which is fine. I like scalping, but yeah. All right, let's continue. I'll speed round through this because we're right at that hour mark roughly. Okay, right at that hour mark, and I want to get us up out of here in the next 15. Okay, Meta, same thing here. Just going to be based off of SPY and Qs. If I'm ever confused on the direction, I'll just open up the daily chart, look at the moving average stack here. Yes, it got a pop on Meta, but right into those moving averages. So I would look at 670 and say you have a little bit more room on Meta potentially. But if you did not know, Zuckerberg is also back in trial with some allegations and things like that. I'm not sure if it'll affect it in any type of way. But yeah, still bullish here. As you can see, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, curling up like that. But just kind of messy right there for Meta as far as trading wise. But it does have an unfilled gap at the bottom here. So I would definitely be mindful of that 670 mark. If it breaks above it, maybe some continuation. If it pushes up into it and rejects, then there you go. Okay. Microsoft. This is one that I think is ready for a big breakout, but software is just getting hit so much and it does not have any type of momentum. With that big kind of spike on Friday and Microsoft didn't move, that kind of tells you that there's still relative weakness. Okay. So Microsoft may want this kind of weekly 200 moving average. It may want down into 370. It may want lower for right now. It just can't get any juice to the upside for right now with that type of monthly candle. If you can see that monthly candle, there's really no buyers just yet. Okay. As far as reversing the trend for right now, do you see anything right now on that monthly candle? It pops and then wanting to go lower, wanting to go. So I would definitely, not dismiss it obviously for long term, but if you're trying to don't see thing until it really gets back above this 425 level, it starts breaking that trend right back above, and then you can get the continuation. If you're trying to, do it down here and get involved, that's not the best action for right now, for me personally. Okay, Tesla. Not really been liking the Tesla chart either. I know I have some community members that have been scalping it. Cool. I just scalping in this little range here. But if I were to look at Tesla, I would say it's still weak underneath that 415, which is the 2021 highs. Go back over here and move that down there, right there. So that 415. But it also, we talked about it last time, it could just be bullish consolidation. Then it just rips up out of nowhere. So it's Tesla. But I would say if you need a pivot point, I would say get back above that 440 would be a lot clearer. Okay. Back above 440 would be a lot clearer. And I know down here, you want to bottom ticket and get all that up to 440. You could, right? So it does look like it's curling here and wants to like rotate back up. I think that looks more bullish in my opinion than trying to short into the lows with puts there. Okay. AMD. My mile marker on AMD is that 203, 204 level. If it's underneath that, a little bit more bearish. If it pushes up above that 210, then maybe we can get a rotation back up. It's all going to be dependent. Everything in purple over here, if y'all got A little bit of eye problems. It's a little squinting here on the left. That is purple for my colorblind folks. But they're all detectors. You know, AMD very bullish. I go TSM. It is the chip. AMD chip. They TSM. So I would say TSM has over there. Focus on the video. And is making it. So I'm gonna pause right here. I think for right now, I think that is something specific on stocks that you want to know. If I were to look at any buys, like anything that, Brian, is there anything for months out right now? I personally, if I were looking at it, I would say probably the best thing that I would say would be the best risk to reward right now. And it would be in these core companies. One would be Hood, in my opinion. Another one would be SoFi, in my opinion, underneath $20. I think Uber and Lyft are really good values right now. Lyft underneath $15, I think is a good value, a good risk to reward. Netflix right now underneath $80, right? If it can go lower, that's great. But a lot of these tech stocks, they're so volatile that they could drop another, 10%, 5% if there's a correction. So I'd be very mindful of those. So it's very difficult. Oracle, I think it's a good value. I think they can return, in my opinion, underneath $150. But yeah, it's all dependent on what's going to happen with SPY and QQQ. It's very difficult because what happens if SPY and QQQ revert back down to the downside? Then everything is going to start reverting to the downside again. So I think Palantir, personally, I think it's a little bit overvalued here with that type of wick there, but I would like Palantir back underneath $100. I think there's been price predictions back into the 60s and the 70s, but Palantir has changed direction here. So yeah, I think Palantir underneath $100, but those are just my price predictions for right now. If anyone has any thoughts, perspectives, let me know in the chat, but I'm going to round out here. We're cooked. Yeah, Marlon, it is. I'm always learning. So I'm going to read some chats out really quick. How long have you guys been trading? I've been trading since 2018 for me personally. That means actively on the charts. That means, in Robinhood trading with the old, if y'all remember the old Robinhood, it was like a teal blue or whatnot. So yeah. And then 2020 hit. I think everyone tried to learn Forex and all types of scammy type of stuff. In my opinion, it kind of tainted the trading markets. And I just didn't want to be, I was never a part of those things. I just always traded options. I always just bought shares. I just kind of did it the old school way personally. I personally, if y'all, right? So I didn't even have a YouTube channel on trading or anything like that because I am a life coach and a business coach as well for entrepreneurs. So I've developed multiple different businesses in all different types of arenas, Airbnbs, Turo cars, business credit, personal credit, all that type of stuff. You can go look at my website. But yeah, just done a lot of things, and trading, in my opinion, was always in the background. And then once AI came out and you can do everything and you can just chat GPT it and do all this stuff, I'm like, man, people are going to be looking for a way to like make a little bit extra bucks, because business or entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is becoming a little bit tougher. And people are looking for community, accountability. They're looking to retain their money. They're not looking to give some coach or mentor just their money just because anymore. People are getting smarter, right? So if I am aware of that and you're aware of that, then we're all on the same page. So I said, I'm just going to give game and provide a way for people to come in, enjoy time together, have good energy, support, all that good things. Yes, I can go over CRV, CoreWeave. Internet is glitching. I think it's his internet. Mine's doing it too. Okay, I think we're still good. We're cooked. Same. All right, core weave, and I'll get up out of here, folks. And trust me, I have all bars over here, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's the... All right, last one here on core weave. I actually like the risk to reward on core weave personally. What does that mean? That means right around, because it's so speculative and it's one of NVIDIA's biggest investments, I think personally this could move with NVIDIA's earnings, okay, one way or the other. So if you want to trade or play it the safe way with NVIDIA and also its earnings as well, I would say dollar cost average into some shares. If you're that person that has a high risk tolerance and you're like, hey, I want to put a lotto call option in because I believe that it will participate with NVIDIA's earnings. I think it's good. I think it will, take off. Then I'll give you some options contracts to look at in the short term, and they are on a little bit on the pricier side. So 100 calls for March 20th, they're $700, right? So could you go further out? Yeah, you could. But that's the risk that you're taking because also the implied volatility is over 100%. So do I think it's a good risk to reward for a lotto call position? Not the best, but I could be wrong. You could be like, hey, I put in a 110 call and it went crazy. Okay, cool. That's fine. I'll option in maybe a leap or something like that. I think that could play a little bit safer. So a summer leap, maybe into June. Those have a decent amount of open interest on them there. Okay. Those are close to the $1,000 to $1,500 there per contract. So I think 100 is realistic. So if you want to look at the 100 calls into the summertime or June, $1,800 there. But if it goes $100 tomorrow, or excuse me, this week, next week, March, April, June, and it goes to 100, then you're safe. And that $1,800 could turn into $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever it is, if it does surpass that $100 mark. So I would say that'd be a little bit safer. Just spending that little extra money for safety. But yeah, I think shares right down here are great, in my opinion. Anywhere between the $70 to $90 range, underneath the $100, I think, you can take the risk on that for core weave. They do have a lot of debt right now, and NVIDIA is kind of on its shoulders, or it's on NVIDIA's shoulders. That help out a little bit? All right. Here, and then I don't know. Okay, because I got all bars, everything's good on my end. Not sure if it is a storm going to brewing, but thank y'all so much. Appreciate you so much for being here. If I can have any feedback, just shoot a DM right there on my socials, as well as make sure you're inside of our newsletter, email newsletter today. So screen is frozen. I'm still in there. Frozen screen is. No. Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. I'm clear. Not if you can hear me. Right at an hour or so. 1 if. I'm not even talking right now. I am not even talking. It says YouTube is not responding. Hmm. To make sure. One misses anything. All right, I'm gonna check this.